So, which one would you recommend? Is it IELTS or OET? What's the main difference between IELTS and OET? Thank you so much for tuning in. And we're very happy to announce the success of our YouTube channel because we launched this just 5 days ago and we were able to gather as many as 550 subscribers and more than 600 views. So this is going to be our impetus for us to develop new content every week. So if for the first 2 weeks of our YouTube content or videos, we focused solely on IELTS. But this week and next week, we're going to compare IELTS versus OET, Occupational English Test, gaining popularity among healthcare workers. So, if I did all the videos last week, now we have a guest. So, what's common for both of us took the examination. So, when we took the IELTS, I, Ervin Nil Temporal, got 9 in listening, 9 in reading, 9 in speaking, 8 in writing. Our guest for today also got exactly the same scores. It's just that I'm not a nurse, he is a nurse, that's why he took OET as well. So, when he took OET, he got perfect A in listening, perfect A in reading, perfect A in speaking, and a B in writing. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you 9.09ers legendary IELTS and OET lecturer, the man, the myth, the legend, Pheelyp Aytona. Hi, Pheelyp.
Hi, Ervin. Thank you for having me here. That was a glorious introduction. That's why I love working for this company. We've known each other for quite a while. Has it been 12 years?
Yes.
Yes. Teaching with Niner for the past 12 years has been an amazing experience, helping people realize how intelligent they actually are. They enter the classroom thinking that English is hard, but I think the same experience is for you as well. That it's actually not that difficult. And with Niner, you're working with the best.
So, for the first episode of our IELTS versus OET video, we're going to focus on the general comparison between the two. So, here's someone who has taken both examinations. So, let's hear it from Pheelyp. How, for beginners, what's the main difference between IELTS and OET?
Well, there are many differences, but the main difference that matters is the fact that the IELTS exam is a general English test, whereas the OET is a healthcare-focused test. So essentially, this means that if you're a healthcare professional, like a nurse or a doctor, the much better option for you would be to take the OET, because this would allow you to tap your existing knowledge about meds and procedures, which general people would maybe not know very much about.
Okay, so just to inform everyone, not everyone can take OET. Okay, so if you're going to Canada, if you're going to USA, still it's IELTS, which is the preferred English examination. So what does OET stand for? Occupational English Test. That means to say it's only the healthcare workers can take OET. So OET is accepted if you're going to UK, Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand. So first, let's compare IELTS listening versus OET listening. What are your thoughts, Pheelyp?
Well, the OET listening and IELTS listening is similar in the sense that they are an increasing level of difficulty. The first parts is always a time for you to get used to it first, whereas the latter parts are a more real challenge. For OET listening, though, they focus on 3 kinds of listening. Listening for specific information, gist, and opinion. Because these are the kinds of listening that are critical in a healthcare context, which is not, which doesn't happen when it comes to the IELTS exam.
Okay, so what about reading? A lot of people are asking, so why is IELTS reading challenging and what makes OET reading difficult in its own merit? So for me, IELTS reading has true, false, not given, and matching headings, which really doesn't come out in OET. But can you please tell our viewers more something about OET reading?
Definitely. The OET reading uses texts that are common in the workplace. So what you are going to be encountering will be emails from supervisors, perhaps, or guidelines on how to use medications, things that lay people never encounter. But but healthcare professionals actually do all the time. They also may encounter research, like research studies that in journals, for example, which normal people also wouldn't encounter in their everyday lives.
Okay, so to compare IELTS listening IELTS listening and reading versus OET listening and reading. For IELTS, you might hear conversations between people and they're talking about anything under the sun. But for OET listening, you might be listening to conversations between a patient and a nurse.
A nurse or a nurse.
Okay.
Exactly. Or a nurse or a doctor who's giving a talk, for example, on vaccinations or surgeries, things like that.
And then, we want to emphasize that OET listening and OET reading exactly the same passage regardless of profession. Did I get it right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone gets exactly the same thing. So listening and reading in the OET is identical for all of the 12 professions that OET is good for. It's in writing and speaking, in which each profession has a different material that they have to work on.
Okay, so now let's proceed to IELTS writing versus OET writing. So IELTS writing, 2 tasks. For academic candidates, task 1, statistics. For general training candidates, task 1, letter writing. And then task 2, same for both ACAD and GT, essay writing. But in OET writing, there's just one task. So what is OET writing?
OET writing is where you're going to be asked to write a letter in which you're going to be endorsing a patient to a fellow healthcare professional. It's again a task that happens all the time in the real world in healthcare contexts. This therefore makes it much more accessible to people from that profession and industry to perform the task, because this would not be alien to them at all.
Okay, now what about IELTS speaking versus OET speaking? IELTS speaking, examiners may ask questions related to flowers, animals, traveling, anything that you can think of. But what about OET speaking?
OET speaking, following the trend of giving relevant content to healthcare professionals, OET speaking is all about you as a healthcare professional talking to a layperson, usually a patient, performing the communicative tasks that happen all the time as well. Reassuring somebody who doesn't know the procedure, calming somebody down. How do you handle somebody who's already depressed or who's angry? And in which it is very important for you to adjust your language, for example, from an expert's language to language that the layman can understand, just like in the real world as well.
Okay, so every single day I respond to a minimum of 100 messages, and every day there are people asking, so which one would you recommend? Is it IELTS or OET? I have my opinion, but let's hear it first from Pheelyp. What is your suggestion for the healthcare workers? Should they go for OET? Should they go for IELTS? You first before I give my opinion.
As a healthcare professional myself, it is definitely the OET for healthcare professionals. There is no question about it, because in the IELTS, I think you're going to talk about global warming, jam making, sailing, things like that. Things that maybe you have no idea about. But when you get to that country where you're going to go to, they don't really care about your English while you're in the park or in the subway.
That's true.
Exactly, right? I mean, they're going to care about your English at work, where you have patients' lives in your hands. And that is when your English matters most. And that is what OET tests, whether you have the language it takes in order to take care of the people whose lives will be in your hands. So definitely it's the OET. It's good for you, and the people who will be hiring you, they will be confident that you have the language skills to do your job properly.
Okay, having said that, is 9.09ers saying that OET is easier to pass than IELTS?
Definitely not. And this is something that you will discover once you take it. We have lots of students. We have lots of healthcare professionals here at Niner. They're nurses. They've taken the IELTS, and lo and behold, they find themselves back in review because they didn't actually get the scores they need. But when they take the OET, in which they can use the language in contexts that are familiar to them, lo and behold, they pass with flying colors.
So, I only recommend IELTS if we're 100% sure that you're going to US or Canada. I also recommend IELTS if you are totally undecided where to go. Because as you see, you can use IELTS in 6 countries: US, UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. But if you are already decided where to go, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and you're a healthcare professional, both of us recommend OET. So this is for our first video. In the succeeding videos, we're going to do some live speaking for IELTS and live speaking for OET. Also, we're going to talk about remark for OET and some personal tips based on our experiences when we took the examination. For those of you who do not know yet, is 9.09er offers online review for IELTS, OET, and PTE. You can visit our Facebook account. You can visit our website, okay? Thank you for joining, and we'll see you in the next video.
Take care.